The Sarasota County Bar Association is a proud partner in bringing you law in Sarasota. With voluntary membership of over 1,000 lawyers and judges, the Sarasota County Bar Association serves its members and your community by advancing legal professionalism, promoting practice development, and fostering fellowship. Visit www.sarasotabar.com for more information and to use the online directory to find an attorney.
This program is brought to you by a grant from the Community Foundation of Sarasota County and the Sarasota County Bar Association. The Education Channel produces the program and broadcasts from its state-of-the-art campus on Beneva Road. They make this program possible. Welcome to Law in Sarasota. Today we're going to be discussing the scourge of sex trafficking, something that's a problem here in Sarasota. Women are being exploited, sometimes willingly, sometimes with force. Either way, it's degrading, abusive, hazardous to their health, and dangerous. The 12th Circuit Court, in collaboration with Selah Freedom, a nonprofit anti-human trafficking organization, have partnered to provide an escape path for women who want to leave the life. One of our circuit judges, Andrea McHugh, has volunteered to lead a program called TILA, which stands for Turn Your Life Around. She oversees a trauma-informed court that has as its mission breaking unhealthy patterns of relationships and leading the victims to a healthy and stable lifestyle. Judge McHugh is here with a TILA case manager, Brianna Cole, who has personal experience with sex trafficking and who interacts daily with women who have been victimized and who are struggling to overcome years of abuse. Welcome, Judge McHugh and Brianna Cole. So, Judge McHugh, tell me, how did TILA start? I mean, what got it up and running, and how did it evolve to where it is today?
I think TILA has a very interesting beginning. The Sarasota Police Department was approached by Selah Freedom, and I should explain that Selah Freedom is a nonprofit anti-human trafficking organization, as you mentioned. There was a real recognizable problem up on the North Trail where they were seeing a lot of women that were being arrested for prostitution and prostitution-related crimes. And so Selah Freedom approached the Sarasota Police Department and sort of helped educate the Sarasota Police Department that most oftentimes those that were being arrested for these crimes had a root problem of childhood sexual abuse. In other words, they had been abused as children, and therefore the crimes that they were committing were really symptoms of the trauma that they had suffered, the drug addiction that that sort of flowed from that, and also sometimes mental illness. And so with that understanding, the Sarasota Police Department agreed to start a diversion program along with the State Attorney's Office, and the State Attorney's Office was very integral in getting it off the ground as well. And the philosophy of the program was to instead of treating people arrested for these crimes as a typical criminal, it was to intervene in their life in a diversionary way, in a way to provide trauma therapy and things that would address the root issues. From that, they approached Judge Erica Quartermain and asked that she preside over a court-sanctioned program, and that's how the TILA Court was formed.
Well, let's talk a moment about what it means to be pretrial diverted. What is the concept, and how does it work in this circumstance?
Sure. The concept, typically in a criminal case, the purpose of sentencing is punishment. And so and sometimes there will be a sort of a therapeutic purpose even in probation. But what the typical probation route was not working for this population. Drug treatment on probation was not enough to help someone, as you said, escape from this life. The root issue of childhood sexual abuse really needed to be addressed. And so instead of putting someone in jail as a punishment or in prison as a punishment for any of these crimes, or on probation, which is the typical probation requirements, this program is uniquely tailored to the individual's root trauma and really addresses that. And so the philosophy is to treat the root problem rather than punish the person for committing the crime.
Well, the TILA Court is another example of what we call trauma-informed courts. It's a problem-solving court. The conventional approach to prostitution was basically catch and release. And women would come into the jail, sometimes they'd be offered drug treatment, but eventually they'd be back on the streets, same problem, same lifestyle. And this is a way to try to intervene in that and to try to change their trajectory of their lives. So when was this that it started up, and how did Sail of Freedom get involved?
Well, Sail of Freedom really is responsible for the genesis of the program, and they began it in 2013 along with the Sarasota Police Department, and then they brought it to Judge Quartermain, which I believe started the program in 2015 into the court program. And you mentioned, how difficult it is through the normal course to help someone be removed for this life. When they were in the normal court system and attending court for perhaps a misdemeanor prostitution charge, many times what the judges were seeing and what law enforcement was seeing is that there would be somebody there that was controlling them. And the street term for that would be a pimp, or but there was a sort of coercive factor. And so we were seeing a lot of turnaround, or the judges were seeing a lot of turnaround in that people were just catch and release, and no one, and you could tell that that person needed some sort of assistance or help, but it wasn't working because in addition to the root trauma that we talked about, there was also a coercive force, sometimes even coming to court with them to make sure that they would continue to do what they were supposed to do.
What are the dangers to the women on the street that are in this life? What concerns do you have when they come into the program that you're trying to address? You mentioned the child sex abuse and the drug addiction. How is that? How do you handle that when it comes into the court?
Right. Well, because that particular individual is going through life as a sexual abuse victim without having treated that trauma, they often are without the skills to know and identify what love actually is, which really makes them vulnerable to coercion from others because they can't recognize a healthy relationship. That often leads to, and almost always we see drug addiction, which obviously is very dangerous when you talk about using needles, and also being physically abused by adults, and when someone is being forced to sell their body, there's the dangers are pretty obvious, but we see a lot of mothers come through the program whose children have been removed from them, and so really when we say turn your life around, they really have to start at rock bottom to sort of build their way up through the program.
When we talk about child abuse, that's one of the things that falls in the category of an adverse childhood experience. And apparently the science is that even something within the first 1,000 days of life, basically the first 3 years of life, a trauma to a child affects the brain development. And it may be years, it could be a teenager or an adult, a young adult, before it manifests itself in antisocial behavior and personality disorders. And trying to get the services in to help with that situation can be very challenging. So let me turn to Rihanna here. So tell me about your experience and how you came involved with Tyla and also Sail of Freedom.
Sure. So I am a survivor of sex trafficking myself, and I was introduced to Sail of Freedom in 2016 when my trafficker was arrested. I had no idea that there was help out there for people like me. I just thought that we were like throwaways and nobody really cared, and especially not the police. Like, I had no idea that there were actually people out there that cared.
Police were kind of the bad guys, right?
Yeah. They were, and like that's the typical like street mentality, especially like with women that are, being trafficked. Like we're taught, don't trust the police. Like they're only going to throw you in jail. But I received a much different experience from the Sarasota Police Department. They treated me and the other girl I was with like we were humans, and they knew that we needed help.
So what kind of help did you get?
Well, myself, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to face the trauma that I had been through. And so I stayed running for another year. But something that will be forever held in my heart is Selah Freedom never gave up on me. Like, they pursued me because they saw something in me that I didn't see in myself.
Judge McHugh, is this cycle of relapse or trying to get involved with services and then going for a while, being successful, and then relapsing into the life pretty common?
It is. We try very hard, Selah Freedom and Tyler Court together, try very hard to really get someone to engage fully at the beginning, but you have to meet the survivor where they are. And a lot of that has to do with processing things and recognition and trust, and there are all these other factors like drug addiction and family dynamics and other things that are influencing their lives. So while we hope to not have a relapse situation, we certainly understand that that is sometimes part of the journey. And as Brianna indicated, we do not give up.
It's kind of a corollary that we use with drug court, I think. But is it just prostitution that brings them in, or are there other crimes like trespass, shoplifting? How about felonies like a burglary?
Yes, we're open to, we really work together, and we're open to really all sorts of charges. Of course, we have to be cognizant that we're not putting anyone in our court in danger or our case managers in danger, so we look carefully at each case. But we have had burglaries or anything that, any crime that could be, any crime that is safe, we will allow in, and we use a screening process to see if the individual has, in fact, been coerced into these situations where they're selling their bodies, or where they and being trafficked, or where they've been sexually abused. The idea is that this is a program designed for those who have that painful root issue, and the crime itself is just a symptom of that root.
Brianna, is it the street cops that do this intervention, or is there a special team from the Sarasota Police Department?
Now, we used to work with street crimes. That's since been taken away, and so now they have the community action team.
And who's on the community action team? They call it the CAT, I guess?
Yeah, a bunch of different officers.
Right.
Okay, so it
Yeah.
does rotate. All right. So let's talk a little bit about what happens if they're successful. So you get a woman that comes in, she has these problems, and she's turned her life around and met the requirements for the program. What do you do with that? What role does the court play in that process?
Well, we rely heavily on our case managers to make sure that the program is tailored to the individual. And it's really a full service program involving, number one, trauma therapy for that root program.
So you connect up to like a Centerstone or a First Step of Sarasota?
Well, and so with the sexual abuse, there will be trauma therapy from a therapist that donates his time to Selah Freedom and conducts trauma therapy. And trauma therapy is absolutely critical. There's also drug treatment, and really the case manager is able to look at that individual and see what that individual needs. There is also a residential program that Selah Freedom provides where the survivor can go, and we call it a place of respite, where they can, during their treatment, they can go and have a break from the world, so to speak. It's a place where they can live without charge, or live for free in a house with other women that are also survivors. They'll have responsibilities and different, there's equine therapy, and they cook meals together, and they have sort of groups where they sort of process things together, and there's a real sisterhood that happens in that house that helps with the healing.
So, Brianna, as a case manager, are you helping with the residential component?
Yes, residential, as well as our mentorship program, which is technically considered outpatient, but they receive the same services as if they were in the residential program, but they're living in the community.
So what kind of house rules they have in the residence?
There is quite a bit of house rules, and when I went through the residential program myself, and When I was in the program, I kind of thought that the rules were silly, but in retrospect, I know that they were in place for a reason. Like you can't watch certain things on TV or can't listen to certain music, and
Do they
things
drug
along those
test?
lines. Yes.
Drug
Yes.
test too. But how about employment? Do you help them find jobs?
Yes. So in our residential home, it works in phases, and so like they're not going to start working right away. That's towards like the end or the latter part of the program. And with that, we have different employment partnerships with different organizations around the community. And basically, like we work hand in hand with them, communicate on how they're doing, and they'll tell us if they're doing well, and it's pretty great.
So, Judge McHugh, if they complete the program, they've been presumably there because they've been charged with a crime, and most of them are misdemeanors. What's the reward for success?
Most of the time, in addition to building their life back and escaping the life, most of the time the charges will be dismissed at the end of the case, unless it's a case that involves a victim where there has to be some restitution paid, or there's some sort of treatment that requires them to be on probation. Most of the time the charges are dismissed and they are not felons. But the real reward, what I see as the real reward when I see them graduating, is you see someone who comes into the program who can't stay out of jail and hasn't had a legal means of income for quite some time, doesn't really have a place to live, is dependent on people who abuse her. And they travel from that place in their life, and maybe their children have been removed, but they travel from that place in their life to month by month by month through the program, sort of building up their self-esteem and their life piece by piece. They get their driver's license. They at least reunify with contact with their children because they've become safer people to be around. They are able to reestablish some relationships, have gainful employment, and bring home a paycheck. And this sense of pride that they have in themselves and their own accomplishments is really, I think, probably the most beautiful thing I see at the end of the graduations.
Are there certain legal jobs that are considered not appropriate for them? Certain jobs you don't want them having? For example, you hear things like working in a bar or other types of similar sort of activities. Is there some restriction on that?
So in our residential program, we won't allow them to work at any place that serves alcohol, any place that's going to put them in danger, really.
So, Judge McHugh, have you seen some successes?
Oh yes, I've seen a lot of successes. And we don't have the, up-to-date, accurate statistics to report at this point, but I've been presiding over the court for 4 years, and most of the time the participants graduate with tears in their eyes, gratitude towards their case manager who's treated them kindly and supported them along the way, and are just over the moon about the TILA program. And to be honest with you, many of them have been through drug treatment programs and different things, and what they always come back to is the fact that this actually address the one thing that they needed to, and it's unique in that way.
Brianna, what would you say are the factors that contribute mostly to the success? If you were trying to talk to someone and say, look, this program really works, but you have to do certain things to make it successful, what qualities do you see that makes a person successful in this?
I would definitely say that willingness is a big one, because it's not an easy program. You have to be all in, and the people that are all in are most successful.
The ones that are not successful, do they reestablish contacts with the pimps and the people that were controlling them? Is that basically the problem?
I would say yes, and a lot of it is substance abuse. So getting caught back up in the addiction, and it's pretty hard to escape that.
So tell me how a typical TILA court works. Like if you're presiding, what are you looking at? Who comes before you?
Sure. Well, I always begin the docket by reminding everyone there that they're there for a reason, and the reason is not for us to punish them, but rather we're a court of tough love, and that means we do love you, and I remind them of that. And that they are worthy and that they deserve all of the resources that they've been given. I also try to highlight for them what a unique time this is in their life, because it's sort of extraordinary to have the resources at their fingertips that they do through this powerhouse organization, Selah Freedom, and the amazing opportunities that they have where they have all of this assistance may never come again. So please dive into this and take advantage of the opportunity that you have. And then we sort of go through each participant and talk about an update and how they're doing. And one of the useful parts about that is that there are some participants at the very beginning, and they can see somebody succeeding at the end of their journey, and they can see somebody struggling midway through. And then, the participants at the end of their journey can sort of give some advice to those who are just in the throes of it. And the idea is to see that you're not alone. Other people have overcome similar problems to what you're overcoming, and while it may seem unachievable here at the beginning, it can be achieved. And so we try to help let the participants' experiences sort of lift each other up and help support each other, and that's been really sort of beautiful to watch as well.
You indicated that you've had situations where your clients can get children back after they've been separated, presumably by the Department of Children and Families because of abuse or neglect. Have you had some of those experiences with clients, Brianna?
Yes, absolutely. I have a client who graduated the Tyler Court program and our Selah Freedom mentorship program, and now she has been reunited back with her child, and she has her own home, and it's just a beautiful thing to see.
You have an example of other successes that you happen to have been involved with?
Sure. I have worked with two different women who had been in the Tyler Court program for quite some time. One of them was a two-timer, so she had completed the Tyler Court program once before, and I kind of adopted her from another case manager. And working with me, I mean, I don't give myself all the credit, but working with me, she completed the program and completely reached that point of surrender, and she's doing phenomenal.
That's great. So how long can they stay in the program?
There's no definite fixed period. I mean, typically we would like them to sort of be on a year to a year and a half track, but we've had, I don't know if this is who you're talking about, but one of our greatest successes, I think, took 3 years to get through the program, and she would sort of be a stellar participant for about 9 months, and then she would just fall off and use fentanyl or something that was very dangerous. And so we would have to have her come back into jail for a while, which we can talk about that sort of portion of a therapeutic court if you want. But and then we would get her back into a program, and it really took a long time to get her to the point where she is. But where she is now, she's reunified, I know, with her teenage daughter, and which I believe that will change her teenage daughter's life, and is clean and giving speeches at different I guess, treatment providers, luncheons throughout town, and it's just really a shining star. So we're thankful that she didn't give up, and certainly we didn't give up on her.
Do you allow women with children into the residential facilities that you run?
Unfortunately, Selah Freedom doesn't allow children, but we do have different programs around the country that can take women and their children in.
That's interesting. In other words, you're networked nationally. Mm-hmm. So if there's a facility or a program in Nashville or Atlanta, what do you give them a bus ticket and get them up there? Is that?
We work with an organization called Polaris. And so what we'll do is we'll reach out to them and tell them we have a survivor who needs to get into a program in Tennessee or Kentucky or California, and they will provide the flight for them at no cost.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So how do you get the money for this, Judge McHugh?
It is 100% supported by the nonprofit Selah Freedom. So fortunately, the court system doesn't have to get any money from it. And I know Selah Freedom has private donors, but also secures grants, and they're very successful financially in doing that, getting state money. And so they fund it 100%.
It's amazing, really. What happens if you have a woman who's pregnant? How do you handle those?
Again, there's other residential programs. We work with Solve Maternity Homes. They've welcomed quite a few of our clients. There's Par Village, just different programs. There's a newer program up in northern Florida that is specifically for women who are pregnant or women and their children.
So they don't necessarily stay here in Sarasota County, which may be a good thing, right? Because it breaks up all the bad relationships they have.
That's right. There's sometimes it's useful to have them move to a different location so that if they are in a weak moment and want to run, it's not as easy to get back to the person who will readily accept them for the purpose of coercing them and giving them drugs.
So Brianna, tell me, how many case managers you have? How many people work in the local TILA organization, excluding the judge?
So as of right now, there are 3 Sarasota case managers.
So what's your caseload?
It varies. I believe I have 5 TILA clients and about 7 mentorship clients.
What do you do as a mentor?
Basically anything, any need that they need, and as Judge McHugh was saying earlier, it's very individualized. It's individualized as well in our Selah Freedom Mentorship Program. So basically, it's case by case, and if there's something that we don't provide that they need, we will seek out different services to make it happen.
So you can help them get a driver's license or bus passes, those sort of things?
Yep, driver's license and bus passes. I have a specific client who never had a driver's license and 29 years old, was able to pay off her fines and get her driver's license for the first time ever in her life.
Okay. Well, sometimes just getting an ID card is tough for them. Do you help them get an education like GRE, educational high school diplomas?
Yes, we will help them if they would like to. We would help them get their GED or go to schooling to get their GED.
Okay. Well, it sounds like a wonderful program. So, time's up for this program. It's reassuring to know programs like TILA and Selah Freedom are active in our community. The mission of TILA Court and the goal of caseworkers like Brianna is to rescue women who find themselves in desperate situations and offer a lifeline. Thank you both for this compassionate work and for sharing your knowledge and experience. And Brianna, thank you for having the courage to come forward and be such a role model for other women. It's great that you've done that. And we're lucky in Sarasota County to have this organization here. Thank you for watching. This is Lee Hayward signing off for Law in Sarasota.
For more than 40 years, the Community Foundation of Sarasota County has partnered with estate planning attorneys and their clients to unlock possibilities for everyone who calls our region home. Our motto, Be the One, reflects our deeply held belief that anyone can be a philanthropist and give back to our community regardless of means. Visit www.cfsarasota.org or call 941-955-3000 for more information.